Hello and welcome back to Bicycle Legs and another panel. And I'm joined by four wonderful gentlemen who you've all seen on the channel here before. Todd Evans, John Clauser, Tim Derling, and of course, Grant Arthur. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this panel.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you, brother.
And today we are going to be talking about our favorite greatest hits album. So I really narrowed this one down and made it tough for the boys here and asked them to pick one. We are going to talk about some honorable mentions at the end, but I have specifically asked them to pick one favorite greatest hits album. So, I mean, we might be a little bit more open with this too. We might be having some compilations talked about that aren't necessarily specifically greatest hits albums, but you know, that's what we're talking about tonight. And we'll get straight into it and we will throw it over to Todd Evans. What is your favorite greatest hits album?
Okay, well, I thought about a lot of classic greatest hits albums, and we'll talk about those in the honorable mentions, but I had to be honest and pick my favorite. And there's one that I really love. And now you can tell me if you think this is off topic, because this is a band that doesn't have any hits, but this is a compilation of their best stuff. But I chose the best of Anathema, Internal Landscapes. And this is a compilation of all of their work on K-Scope Records. And if you don't know who this band is, they started out as a death metal band and they morphed into something very, very different than that. In fact, Anathema's music is really ethereal and beautiful. And I mean, if you think that if you use words like hokey and overdramatic and stuff like that, then you won't like this band because they're extremely hard on their sleeve. But I have the vinyl of it too. But this is probably the best. This is the best example that I can think of this really is all you need to have is these 13 songs. They really are the 13 best songs. And I didn't buy any other of their albums for like 2 years after I got this. It came out in 2018, I think, because it just really nailed it. So I picked that one as my favorite because I had to be honest because this is my absolute favorite.
Yeah.
We'll get to some classic rock when I do my honorable mentions.
Yeah, no, fair enough. It has best of in the title, does it?
Okay. Yes, it does.
Yeah,
the best of it. Yes.
That definitely counts then.
All right, good.
Yeah. No. That's a good choice. I don't really know that band, so that's probably a really good place for me to dip my toe in the water, as it were.
Yes, it is extremely accessible music.
Yeah. And you say they started off as a death metal band?
They did. And they couldn't be further from that now. It's more, they have kind of an alternative kind of a slant.
Yeah,
now.
I mean, that sort of makes me think of Opeth a little bit. I got into Opeth when they stopped doing the death growls, but they're still a pretty heavy band.
Like Opeth, there's a little bit of shoegaze in there, so that kind of makes them not like Opeth. And if Opeth did what Anathema did, people would be walking out of their concerts very, very upset.
Fair enough.
Well, they have a girl singer, so yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely have to check that one out. Thank you for that, Todd.
Sure.
John Clauser, what did you pick as your favorite greatest hits album?
Well, I'll tell you what, I had one that I thought this was the one I was going to go with. And then I got thinking, in light of some events that's kind of taken place in my own life as of late, I decided, I know there's one that crept up that I'm like, no, this one's a little true to me. So, or a lot more true to who I really am as a person. I think if you really get to know me a little bit more. Now, forgive me for this. I don't tend to talk about faith-based albums much on these shows, but this one I have to because it really truly is one of my favorites. I was introduced to this artist in 1998 after a pretty rough period in my own life. I discovered some songs that this person does. And I was coming from a metal background at first. And then I get introduced to this guy who has, hammered dulcimers and Irish whistles and, more of a folk rock, kind of a sound. And then I find out he was killed in an automobile accident a few months earlier. and it kind of just crushed me because everything I'd heard from this person really tugged at my heart. It really just challenged me as a in my faith, I guess you could say. So this person is a fellow by the name of Rich Mullins, and this is a greatest hits album. It's just called Songs. So this has a lot of his CCM, as it's called, a lot of his like top hits and top songs that plus a couple of new ones. But there was just so many songs. I won't go into songs on this, but there was just so many songs that just challenged me personally and just really made me dig in a little deeper sometimes. So I know this is probably a completely out of left field thing from me, but yeah, I have to be true to who I am, I think, deep down in my soul. And right now, and this album has always given me a lot of comfort over the last 20 plus years I've been listening to this. So, and I have all of his albums too, but this is just anybody who just wants to try something different in this, if you're into the Christian music thing, I would recommend this one because it's just challenging. So Rich
John,
Mullins.
doesn't he? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Doesn't he have some alternative crossover cred? Did he ever have an album that was more mainstream? Because I recognize that name as being something was like played on the radio.
It might have been. I didn't know about him in his heyday because he was killed in a crash in 1997. So if he's gotten any kind of mainstream stuff, it's probably happened since.
Okay.
There was a movie that I think it came out on Netflix, and it's something to do with a youth camp. It's all I can remember. I can't remember the actual name of it. But at one point, there's like a campfire song, and they morph probably his most known song, which is called Awesome God. But they also morph it with a song that was called God Only Knows, which was that was a kind of a big hit for a group called For King and Country. And they morphed the two songs together, and it really sounded pretty cool. But yeah, as far as after, if he had any alternative cred, I couldn't really. I think he was with Amy Grant in the early days of her, and so that's kind of how he got his foot in the door. But
yeah, I just looked him up. I think I might have been mistaken. I think I was thinking of that big song of his, and I think that's why I know him.
Yeah. So there you go. That's a completely out of left field one for me. So
yeah. No, fair enough. I tell you what, I'm not a religious person myself, but I do still listen to some sort of Christian acts. Like I always liked the early Jars of Clay albums, especially that first one that Adrian Belew worked on a little bit.
Yes, Flood is a classic, absolute classic song. Yeah, that first album is classic. I agree.
Yeah. So there you have it.
Jars of Clay is I did not know that.
Yeah, they're a Christian band.
Something new every day here. I've heard of Jars of Clay. I've never heard
of one or promoted as one, but they are one.
Yeah, the name of the band I think comes from a line of scripture.
It does.
So did Belew produce that first record, or what was
just a couple of songs on it?
Just a couple. I think Flood though was one of them, if my memory serves me correctly.
That was a big radio song.
Yes.
Maybe if I would hear it again, I'd probably remember it.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd come right back to you. If I can't swim after 40 days, like it was huge.
Yeah.
Like really fast guitar
up-tempo, big time acoustic guitar driven.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, there you go.
Thank you for that one, John.
Thank you for that one, John. Real left field choice, but we love that on the channel. We love to hear about the different artists. That's great. Tim, what did you pick as your favorite greatest hits album?
Something completely different. It's a band I like, and it's a band I've listened to probably more in the last 3 years than I ever have. They've never been one of my favorites, but I've always looked at them as a very dependable band, and they have a very dependable best of that came out in 1991. Ratt and Roll. 81, 91. This is tough to beat if your vehicle still has a CD player. This is a good car CD. It's got 19 songs on it. It's just chock full of songs. Their songs tended to be rather short anyway, so there's a good chunk of every one of their albums to this point It's got all their Atlantic album stuff. It included Nobody Rides for Free, which is a new single at the time. I just think this is a fantastic best of, and yeah, there are album tracks from these albums that I like, but this is a good fix, and it's pretty easy to find still, thankfully. And yeah, I thought I'd go with this because I just think this is an extremely well done album. I'll say it many times probably. I hate it when record labels will put out a best of and they'll leave one or two obvious songs off, and that they're just hoping to get a volume 2. Because because most of the time, I understand it from a business point of view. If you put out something that's got everything on one CD, that's all most people will ever buy.
Right.
And so the catalog sales will shrink. There's nothing missing on here, except some fan favorite. Every charting song they had, which is probably more than people think. They only had 2 top 40 singles in the States, but they had probably 7 or 8 mainstream rock songs. And I mean, they were a big selling band. This is just a good compilation. I wish I had it on vinyl, but there you go. Ratt and Roll 8191.
And there's 2 tracks from the EP that's on there,
which is
that's hard to come
and
by.
that's expensive.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
How many remind me how many tracks were on the EP? Because I remember when you could find
6.
that EP used
there were 6
back in the day.
If you ask Mike Ladano, he'll tell you that there's a Japanese version that had 7, and the 7th one
6.
is the 7th one is like Back for More. It's another song they re-recorded for Out of the Cellar, and I can't remember which one, but yeah.
I haven't seen that in years. I haven't seen that since the 80s in the used
bands.
New.
I love the EP is probably my favorite thing Ratt ever did as far as a single release, even though it's just an EP. But Sweet Cheater and You Got It, and it's so good. But yeah, I do like the fact, because a lot of compilations that have come out since, I have to think Atlantic don't own the EP, because the songs never show up anywhere now. Even
I don't
great
think
big
they
box
do.
set they just put out, the EP's not part of it. Drives me crazy.
Yeah, I don't think they ever re-released it on Atlantic. I think it was only available.
Somebody,
Yeah.
Well,
Marshall Burl Estate
Atlantic,
owns it, or somebody.
It was out on Atlantic on CD though. They
It
put it out
very briefly. It's one of my rare CDs, but it came out in like '87, and it was only issued once. You can go on Discogs and pay $200 and get one from Japan, but I have to think Atlantic doesn't own it, or they put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. It was in a long box.
Yeah.
I bought one of those box sets that has like 5 of their albums in it, and I probably should have bought that, because it would have been easier for me to get to know, I think.
Yeah.
No, good choice. I mean, I remember my younger sister being big into Ratt, sort of back in the day, in the sort of late 80s, and that's
the funny thing. I wasn't even into them back in the day. I discovered them later, and I'm like, they just have good song after good song. Steve Pearcy's not the greatest singer, but in context of this band, it works. Warren DeMartini and Robin Crosby were fantastic guitar players that understood. They were like the 80s version of Joe Perry and Brad Whitford. In so many ways, they were like a souped up Aerosmith. It's no coincidence that on their first EP, they did a cover of Walking the Dog. They just, obviously it was modeled after Aerosmith, right? Not that they sounded anything like them, I don't think, but the work, what is the word I'm looking for? The
aesthetic.
The brain is a terrible thing.
It's terrible. The way the way the band was put together.
Yeah,
it's just one word, and it's a simple word. Not the lineup, but the look. Don't waste any time. Go on. I'll right out of my head.
Normally, Tim's not ever looking for words. I'm just surprised we had this moment.
I've been up for like 16 hours at this point, so. It was a 3-hour drive to the expo and a 3-hour drive back, so not complaining. Yeah.
All right. Grant, what did you choose as your favorite greatest hits album?
Well, this was very tough, because there's several that I really like, and none of them really say greatest hits on them, but that's what they are. This band didn't really have anything until like 2000, even though they were hit big in the eight. Well, I don't know. They had maybe a couple of hits. We know this band at least had one big hit, and that was it. But they had a compilation that came out in 2000 that I think was very creative. There wasn't really anything out like it before. And it was like, finally, we got a compilation with all the great tracks that were missing, or, and, some remixes. It was just a great comp. And now it's out of print, and it was going for a lot more money, but now it's not going for quite as much because that's the way things work. But it only came out on CD. And I would have to recommend this for anyone getting into this band and don't have anything. And I'm Devo, the pioneers that got scalped. It's got that really 3D cover on it. I mean, it's cool as hell. It's got a great book. And where else are you going to find? Holy crap! It's got a lot of spoken word on here too, because you get a lot of words that get stuck in my head by Boogie Boys on here. There's a lot of just different snippets and stuff. It's great. You've got the dance mix of Dr. Detroit on here too. I wish they would have put just the regular version of Dr. Detroit, because as far as I know, I don't think that ever came out on CD. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but I always see the damn dance mix all the time. And I don't know why it's on here, but it also has what was the great song? It Takes a Worried Man, which is on this comp, which is from Human Highway, which is a great Devo song. It's a remake, but God, this compilation, I love it. In fact, if I'm just going to pull something out, I always just pull this out if I just want to listen to Devo.
Yeah.
Because it's
you had to
top notch all the way.
You had to buy the 12-inch dance mix of Dr. Detroit to get the regular version of Dr. Detroit. It was on there. And that was, as far as I know, that was
Dr. Detroit as a soundtrack. Was there a soundtrack to Dr. Detroit that was released?
Probably.
Yes, there was.
Was it ever out on CD?
I don't think so.
Know about
I've never
that.
seen it. I don't think I've ever seen it.
But I do know that the original, like the regular version of the theme from Dr. Detroit did get released as a 7-inch single, but there was because I bought it back in the day, and there was a James Brown song on the B-side, which was also from the soundtrack. So,
okay. So the other side wasn't Devo. Okay.
No.
I know it was a different label. I know it was MCA.
Yeah, MCA instead of Warner Brothers.
All I see on Discogs are either vinyl or cassette.
Yeah,
I'm really surprised that Rhino or Razor and Tie or one of those labels didn't put it out.
Yeah,
I'm surprised too. But I would love just the single version of Dr. Detroit, not the damn dance mix all the time. Do you hear me, Rhino? Do you hear me, Devo?
Well, the problem is probably it's not the record company they have to deal with. It's the movie studio. When you have soundtracks on, because I mean, look how long it took Cheap Trick to get all of those soundtrack songs in one spot. I never thought they'd ever do it, but they did.
But it's funny
there's still probably more out there that I think. What?
I was going to say, it's funny you should mention that, because there's a brand new Devo compilations just come out, literally yesterday, I think.
I know it's in the mail. I haven't gotten it yet, though.
50 Years of De-Evolution, and I believe the CD version of that does have the regular 3.5 minute version of Dr. Detroit on it.
I think it's the dance mix.
Well, I don't know.
We'll see.
I heard it mentioned.
We'll report
back. It mentioned in a Devo group on Facebook that it was the regular version. But
thanks for reminding me. I've got to go order that right now as soon as we get off this show.
Yeah, well, there's a 4 LP version of it on clear vinyl, and I desperately need that. But yeah, no, brilliant choice. Of course, I'm going to say that, because Devo, one of my favorite bands of all time, and it is a great compilation because you get all the songs you need, like all the famous songs, but you get a whole bunch of stuff from soundtracks and things like that that were never, that you could never get anywhere else, and they're all collected on there. It's definitely worth seeking out if you can find it, but it is out of print. It was released in 2000?
2000, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely worth tracking down if you can find it. We will probably be talking a little bit more Devo in my honorable mentions, by the way. But the album I had to go for as my favorite greatest hits album, there were a lot to choose from, but this one, not only is it a wonderful, wonderful compilation, and for the casual fan, definitely, I think, everything you need to own by this artist. But also, I have a real connection to this one from my childhood with my younger sister. We used to sit around and listen to this album all the time. So I have really great memories of this, and that is Billy Joel's Greatest Hits Volumes 1 and 2. And it has to be the CD version. This is the original fat box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. But it has to be the CD version, because as you can see on there, the CD version says it has 4 tracks that are not available on the vinyl. And those tracks, I think, are really, really important tracks, because they're things like Captain Jack and The Entertainer and Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. You know, wonderful songs that just aren't on the vinyl version. But I really feel like this, you know, I love Billy Joel and I have all his albums. Oh, I don't think I have a physical copy of River of Dreams, but you know, I think he's an essential artist. I love him. But for the fan who maybe isn't sort of fully into his catalog, this is everything you need from this man, as far as I'm concerned. You know, you've got the obvious songs, things like Piano Man and Just the Way You Are, and you know, Big Shot, and It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, and you know, Tell Her About It, and Uptown Girl, all those big, big hits. But you've also got some wonderful other songs like Allentown and Goodnight Saigon, which to me are, and Pressure. You got Pressure, Allentown, and Goodnight Saigon, which to me, from the Nylon Curtain, are 3 of the 4 essential songs off that album. You know, you get a couple of new songs. You get You're Only Human, Second Wind, which was kind of a big hit for him, and The Night Is Still Young, which I don't even know if they released that as a single or not.
That was a minor, like that was like a number 34.
Yeah,
it was a minor. Good song. Should have done better.
But you know, and also, you know, the thing, when I did my Billy Joel studio albums ranked, I had to pick The Stranger as my favorite Billy Joel album, even though it was the sort of obvious choice. And this compilation makes you realize why The Stranger is his best album, because I think there's like 9 or 10 tracks on The Stranger, and on the CD version, there's 6 of them on this best of.
Wow.
So, you know, just you know, this is, to me, is an incredible album. But also, as I said, I just have these wonderful, warm memories of being a teenager and sitting with my younger sister and listening to all these songs and absolutely loving them and singing along with them and all that sort of thing. So that's why this had to be my choice. Billy Joel's Greatest Hits, Volumes 1 and 2.
Allentown is pretty much near my hometown. That's where I grew up. And and the people of Allentown put a big petition into Billy Joel's management to try to get him to play in the area on his tour. Unfortunately, we don't really have a big enough arena, but he conceded and he did. And my brother actually got to go to that show. So that was that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go.
That would have been great.
Yeah, one of the things that this album always reminds me of is that there are 2 songs on here. It's very, very difficult for a pop rock artist to write a standard. And Billy Joel has 2, and they're both on this album. There's Piano Man and New York State of Mind. That's a remarkable achievement for a pop rock artist to have a standard. I mean, people will be singing those songs forever. And just whenever I see this album, it reminds me that he's like on another level.
Yeah. So Todd, you've got a whole stack of honorable mentions there.
I'm gonna keep it down to 4. Should I just do all of them? I'll go real fast.
Yeah. Just go through all of them, and you know, if you want to say a little bit about them, we've got a bit of time. So if you want to talk a bit about each of them, you're welcome to.
All right. Well, this guy has a whole bunch of them, but this is the best of Costello and the Attractions from 1985. It's got what is that? 19 songs on it. They redid it in the Ryko years, and they took off The Only Flame in Town, and they put on I Want You or something like that, which doesn't really work because The Only Flame in Town should be on it. But this is up until that point, this really could have been one of those. You can just buy this, and you know, it's a really good comp. And to this day, I still play it all the time. I mean, rather than reach for one of his albums. This one is newer, but this is a remarkably good compilation. This is Lindsey Buckingham's solo anthology. And this is a 21-track record. And there is a combination of his hit records, because he doesn't have that many hit records, but the deep cuts that they put on here are really great. And they go up to present day. And so this thing is really good. And there's like a iTunes deluxe version that's like twice as long. There's 2 new songs on it. There's a vinyl version that is as long as the deluxe one. I think it's 6 records in a box. But this is just one CD, one, $12 CD, and it's really good. This has always been a favorite. The Best of OMD. Again, 16 tracks. It would have been better if it didn't end with 2 12-inch versions and just had a couple more songs on it. But, it's more than just Enola Gay and So in Love. It's got a bunch of deep cuts from the early days, and that's a great one. And then speaking of albums that you could have just this, up until the point this came out, you really could just have this album. Your song, Daniel Honky Cat, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I just bought this minty copy for $10. That's why the price is still on it. But I mean, look at that track list. It's just that's a great album. And I'll stop there.
No, all great choices. Yeah. I think in this country, the only solo hit Lindsey Buckingham had was Trouble. That was a huge hit.
That's probably right. Yeah.
Holiday Road.
Yeah, I mean, that got played a lot, but it didn't really make the sort of high end of the charts.
It's funny, it didn't
here.
hit the top 40, but everybody knows it that's ever seen National Lampoon.
Yeah. And
it should have been at number 1.
Yeah. I think in the States, Go Insane was charted.
Go Insane was like 23, but Trouble was his only top 10.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I know
John,
about stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
John, what honorable mentions did you have?
Well, I might as well just keep all the left field stuff coming, because I mean, come on. I grew up with this. Of course, I'm going to say something about Johnny Mathis. If anybody watched the old Contrarians episode about memorable concert experiences, and I mentioned that one.
I knew there was something. I couldn't remember what.
And I mentioned
the only
that
time Johnny Mathis was ever mentioned on the
Contrarians. Yes, it might be the only time it's mentioned on Bicyclelegs. But anyway, yeah, if you go back and you watch that show, I talk about how my mom, my brother and sister and I all went to see him in concert together as a family. And my mom has yet to go back to see him again and ever since, because that was the best time for her. I feel I would be a little bit remiss if I at least just didn't poke fun and just talk. Well, you're not going to see that. I thought I mentioned at least Cheech and Chong's greatest hit, but I'm not going to go there. And really the last one, this is another one of those bands. If you want to just get into if you like the early albums of this band, I think this is the best place to start, because that's what it did for me. Black Sabbath, We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. This was a good one for me. And when I first heard this was kind of a gateway to Sabbath for me, between hearing about Ozzy, because this was like early 80s. So, his solo albums had just come out. I guess I think Rady hadn't died in the plane crash yet when I got into it, but that was pretty much my gateway to figuring out or understanding who Sabbath was. And then I went on from there. So there you go.
No, again, all good choices. And yes, I'm pretty sure that is the first mention of Johnny Mathis on Bicyclelegs. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
We've really covered all the bases.
We are covering everything tonight. Absolutely.
And I'm the one
wonderful.
bringing it on. You have no
Yeah.
idea. I'm coming way out of left field, folks. I'm
Okay.
usually the metal guy.
Yeah.
That's
So there
what's
you-
great about you, John. You just never know what you're going to dish out.
So, Tim, what honorable mentions did you have?
Well, mine are going to be fairly predictable. If anybody knows my, main interest in music, it's not quite as long as the Ratt one, but again, I just think it's a perfect car CD, especially if you're in the mood for some melodic rock from the '80s. Night Ranger's greatest
Oh
hits.
yeah.
That one's great.
This
That's a
came
good
out
one.
in
That's a good one.
1989. The really weird thing is, other than Icon, the Universal Collection, like there's never been another, other than Live, but there's never been another best of Night Ranger, which it's a shame because, I wish that not that they had a lot of hits after this, but I wish that there was a Universal compilation that went deeper. But this is 10 songs if you get the record or the cassettes, 12 songs if you get the CD, and there's
Like
nothing
one
missing.
of these. I don't know why they never did that for Night
Yeah,
Ranger.
exactly. They could easily
They
do
should
that
have.
for Night Ranger.
They should do like a box set or something. They have enough
Yeah.
material.
Yeah. The trouble is that after the MCA, they're on different labels and
Oh,
licensing and stuff like that. But
a lot for Frontiers and
yeah, they had one on Sony, but yeah, there should have been something. But it also, MCA was the most conscientious label, and they were kind of lazy because if you look at a lot of MCA's bands, all they did was put a picture of the band on the cover. That's all they did. They didn't spend a lot of money on them. Also, this is the stretched version of the logo, which I'm not crazy about.
Oh, I hate that.
It should be more so they like that, and it's so obviously photoshopped. Like if you look, the picture of the band and that street scene, that's not the same thing. I don't think it looks like it was photoshopped in, but it's not missing anything for the casual person. It's got anything that you might think that from Night Ranger. So it's points for that, because there are some, and of course I can't think of any right off the top of my head. Well, okay, I'll pick on one. REO Speedwagon's The Hits came out in 1988. Doesn't have Keep the Fire Burning on it. Why would you leave a top 10 song off the Greatest Hits album?
That has never made any sense to me.
No. And over the years, I've come to learn it's probably because someone in the band has their nose out of joint about someone who co-wrote a song that's not in the band anymore. You know what I mean? Like there's something, like it's not like they don't have people that go over stuff like this. But yeah, that Night Ranger was pretty perfect. And it is, it's only 10 songs, but I think it's a really good intro. It certainly worked for me when I was just starting to get into this band. And I love the artwork, The Best of Kansas.
That's another one.
Yeah.
That thing
a big
has
record.
the wall on it.
Yeah. First time I heard it was the first time I heard a lot of these songs was on this. And
Yeah.
what I really love about this is that there are elements from, it's like Rush's Exit Stage Left. There are elements from all of their previous albums between the front and back cover. And I just love stuff like that. The thought gone into that. So this is just a good solid 10-track compilation. And what I hate is when you reissue something and you leave things off. The song Perfect Lover was new when this came out. And when they reissued it in 1999, that song's gone now.
What? Why? Do you know why?
Well, it's pretty poppy, and I think it was mostly John Elephant. But still, why act like something didn't happen? It's just aggravating. The only good thing about the reissue is that it I think there's a couple tracks that were left off the CD version of Two for the Show in order to get it onto one disc. But I don't like it when you reissue something. You should never omit. You should always just add. But especially don't take a new song off that was only ever available on the best of. So what you want to get is the original 1984 issue of this.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty good introduction, because I love the fact that when I first heard this, I hadn't heard it. I love the fact that they had songs like Fight Fire with Fire, because I had no idea they had that mainstream period, but I love it all. So it's all here. It's got Play the Game Tonight. It's got Hold On. It's got Point of No Return. And of course, it's got Carry On and Dust in the Wind. So
And it's got Song for America too. I mean,
Got
it's
Song
got
for America on here. It's got No One Together. Like it's
yeah.
it's really
It's a good
they do a
comp.
lot. They do a lot with a little. You know, they didn't put People of the Southwind on here, which is a top 40 single, but you know, I'm okay with that. So it's pretty good. It's a good intro. And it's still available.
I think
You can
that's
still get the 99 version. So
I think that's the best album cover on any comp best of. I think that's the
I love it.
absolute
And
best album cover.
I'll also tell you, like when I first got the vinyl, I didn't have all of Kansas albums. This is pre-internet for me because it was the early 90s. And when I first saw the inner sleeve, I was so delighted because it's got all of their album covers on it. And I didn't know what all of them looked like. So now I knew what to look for. So yeah. And it's got all the song titles on it. And I just think it's funny how they've got it like they've got the title like it's a speech balloon.
Yeah.
And one of you guys on here might know, because you guys are into way more like eclectic stuff than I am. But I have to mention this because I think it's such a cool tribute. There's a band called Mo. I have no idea what they sound like, but it's like dot or period MOE Mo. And I think they're like this independent band. They've got like a million albums, like they've been recording forever. And they have this Warts and All series, which is about what it sounds like. It's like live recordings. And I only know this because they have one that they recorded in Lawrence, Kansas. And in tribute, they do a spoof of the Best of Kansas album cover. And I think it's a frog instead of that guy.
I've seen that.
So if I ever saw it, I'd almost buy it as a companion piece. But yeah, that's all I have for honorable.
Yeah, no, look, I will absolutely back you up on that Kansas album being a great introduction, because the CD version was my introduction to this band. I'd heard about them and I wanted to get into them. And so the first thing I bought was the Best of Kansas on CD. And it made me fall in love with the band. So, you know, I definitely do need to seek out a vinyl copy of it, though, for that song that you mentioned. But yeah, great choice. Love it. Absolutely love it.
In the
Grant,
States, that vinyl album will set you back about $40.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I'll have to keep an eye out for it. Grant, what did you have in the way of honorable mentions?
Well, I do need to bring some bad news to the panel before I give my two other mentions. I checked the Rhino Records website, and the theme from Dr. Detroit is the dance mix.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
There's got to be a legal
just
reason.
as a question, like to put it out here from someone, like I know that I've heard of it. How different is it? Like why is there a reason?
I don't know.
The dance mix.
Well, it's
Is it
about
really
double the
different
length
from the
to
original?
start. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, there's not a big difference.
No,
like
it's
I don't think
just
the
an
dance
extended
mix is
mix.
like 12 minutes long or anything like that.
No, I think it's like 6.5 minutes long as opposed to 3.5 minutes. But
Yeah.
But it's just like, yeah, it's your typical 80s dance mix, basically.
It's interesting because most things get reissued eventually, but there are some groups that have that one or two things that just stick out. Like, why isn't this out again?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I will mention this, that the new Devo comp that's coming out does have Watch Us Work finally.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I only have that from iTunes.
Oh,
that's where I got it, but I wanted I don't want a compressed version of it. I want, you know what I mean?
What I will mention, though, Grant, is apparently the new Devo compilation. It has it takes a worried man on it, and it includes Boogie Boy's speech in the middle of the song from the movie.
Oh, good.
Ooh, good. Thank God. I love that.
That's great.
Because that is so great. I mean, not a very great movie, but you've got to have Boogie Boy in there. All right. Well, my first one was, since Tim Derling did mention REO Speedwagon, but a great comp that came out for REO was this.
Oh, yeah.
And this has things on there. Well, this has everything up, including 9 Live stuff, but it picks all the best stuff. I mean, if you're just a novice or you're just a casual fan and you just want some of that early stuff, this incorporates everything. Even though there's been other comps that have come out recently, which I do think are very good and they're more inclusive. Like I think it's called Class. What is it? It came out in
there's the Essential, and I have that. I don't have a physical copy of it, but there's an Essential in this series for REO Speedwagon.
There's something even better than that.
And it's really good.
It's a 4 CD set. And it's cheap,
4 CDs.
and it's
I don't even know what that is.
Or it's 3 CDs. I can't remember. I didn't think I was going to talk about it.
But it's called like the Essential 3.0, and it's got 3 CDs on it. And it's actually got, what I like about it is that the third CD actually has that song, Wherever You're Going, It's All Right, from the Goonies soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool when they could get those soundtrack songs on a comp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's got Riding a Storm Out with Kevin Cronin original vocals.
Yes.
That's why I bought it. And then this has got, and this also is a must-have because it's got Son of a Poor Man from the same record with Kevin Cronin vocals. The other thing that I wonder, since Kevin Cronin recorded vocals, we're on a tangent. Sorry, I'll make it quick. Why in the world haven't they brought out Riding the Storm Out with the original vocal tracks? They obviously have.
I cannot stand. Was his name Mike Murphy?
I think it was Mike Murphy.
I can barely listen to that one, or like what This Time We Mean It, and Lost in a Dream. Like there's good songs on there, but I like of all. Like, did they hire like one of the roadies to sing? Because like Terry Luttrell
I don't know.
is a good singer. He
was great.
He was way different than Kevin Cronin, but Mike Murphy just sounds like a football player or something that wandered behind the mic. I don't know. It's just my
When's
opinion.
the anniversary for that album? Because maybe that's when we'll get it. Is there like a 40th?
Sony
Riding the Storm Out. So
if you're listening, Sony, can't we get Riding the Storm Out anniversary edition with all the Kevin Cronin vocals? You want to sell some records?
Set out. Put both versions out, or get BGO to put it out like they put out all those 2-disc.
I don't think we'll ever see it, but I wish we would. So the other comp, and I know Tim Derling will agree with me, it's not a best of, but it might as well be because it's got all the rockers on it.
Yeah, I knew you were going to pick that one. That's a great one.
It's
got some hits on it, even though.
Yeah, it's got hits, but the thing is with this is it's got tracks on here you can't get. It's got I Like to Rock, which is the unedited version of it.
It's got different mixes. Yeah.
And it's got Tonight, which is a different mix than that's not on Harder Faster. But it's full of hits. It really is. Maybe not in the States, but there are Canadian tracks.
It's got Roller on it.
Yes. But it's great. It's got Crash at 20th Century Schizoid Man's on here. And it's great. But I love this comp. And I'll just pull it out if I just want to listen to April Wine in general, not have to think about it. I'll just pull this comp. Same with this. These are comps that I still play. There's some comps that I have in my collection that I don't play. You know, you're a completist, or you know what I mean. But these are so great that I still play them today.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, I've got just a couple of honorable mentions. This one I feel fits into the same category as my Billy Joel one, that if you're a casual fan of this band, this is pretty much all you need, and that is Sladist by Slade. Obviously, if you're a hardcore fan, you need all the albums. But if you just want the hits, they're pretty much all here. You know, it's got Come On, Feel the Noise, which wasn't even on one of the studio albums. It was a non-album single. You know, but it's also got Mama, We're All Crazy Now, and Goodbye to Jane, and 'Cause I Love You, and Look What You Done. It's just wonderful, just like 14 tracks of wonderful, really noisy glam rock. Absolutely love it. And look at the guys on the back. I mean, you know, that's a small stage.
Yeah.
You know, they're still not in the big time there yet, but I love the way they're outfitted on that shot. And then, I did promise some Devo, so we are going to get some Devo, and that is Devo's Greatest Hits, which is like a Warner Brothers compilation. But one of the things I love about this is that it came with a companion piece, Devo's Greatest Misses.
Yeah, I
And that
totally
has some of
forgot
their very
about that.
best songs on it.
Yeah, the Greatest Misses has got like all sorts of really sort of deep tracks and all that sort of thing. Whereas the Greatest Hits has got, you know, the obvious ones like Girl You Want and Whip It and Peekaboo and all that sort of thing. What a lot of people out in America don't realize is that Devo here actually in Australia had a number of hits. You know, Peekaboo was a top 40 hit here. Beautiful World was a top 40 hit here. Even Here to Go was a top 40 hit here. It took until 1986, but it did hit the top 40 here. So, yeah, you get the greatest hits. And I love the fact that they're, you know, almost the same cover, but you've got one where the shot's made and one where the shot misses. So, you know, I think that's very clever too.
I still play those.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
does it
absolutely.
have? Does it take a worried man?
No, it doesn't have that on either of these because that was like a soundtrack song. Again, this doesn't really have any of those soundtrack songs. So, but if you're looking for something these are still pretty easy to find and pretty cheap to
Yeah, and they're
get.
cheap.
So if you're looking for, you know, you want to dip your toe in the water with Devo, you don't want to spend a lot of money, these are great. But get them both and get both sides of Devo. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's those are my honorable mentions. Thank you so much, guys, for doing this show with me. This has been a lot of fun. To all my viewers, please go and subscribe to My Music Corner, to Tim's Vinyl Confessions, to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and of course to the Contrarians, where you can see all of us from time to time. Todd doesn't have his own channel, but he can be found. But he can be found wherever good YouTube music content is to be found. He's on.
Todd is
all of our
everywhere.
I like that.
channels. So, thank you, gentlemen. This has been a lot of fun. Please do like, share, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please go and have a look at some of my other videos. I have everything playlisted. So if you want to see some of my other panels with these fine gentlemen contributing, I have a playlist for those. If you want to see my studio albums ranked shows, there's a playlist for those. And if you want to see my appearances on some of these gentlemen's channels, I also have a playlist for those as well. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at bicyclelegs on Instagram and Twitter, and I now have a dedicated Bicycle Legs Facebook page. Links are all in the description. Please come and give those a follow and join in the conversation. I'd really love to have you there. And also, please let us know in the comments, what are your favorite greatest hits albums? Because I'm sure you guys have a whole bunch of greatest hits albums that we haven't even mentioned tonight. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.